So as we did with our previous candidates, I'm going to ask each of you to please, in 90 seconds, state your name, the office you're seeking, and then answer the following question. What do you think are the most important solutions at the county level, at the state level, to address sea level rise and flooding?
Hi, my name is Dianne Hart, and I'm running for State House District 61. What's really important is that at the state level, we have got to ensure that we put in some regulations in place that will stop people from building on barrier islands, because that's really, really important. We also have to ensure that we make sure that the inspectors, when they're going out inspecting these sites and these buildings that are being built, that they are really doing it properly and following all the rules and regulations, because a lot of times they don't. And that's really, really important to ensuring that we don't have all of this flooding. But something else we've got to do, we've got to ensure too that we don't build houses up next door 4 inches or 5 inches higher than the one that's below it, because that's automatically causing flooding in our communities.
Thank you. Dianne.
Good evening. My name is Karen Skyers, and I'm a candidate for State House District 61. I believe that the first thing we need to do at the local, state, and federal level is to elect people who believe that there is a climate change problem. So as you can see, we have a president and a governor who is actually running for a higher office right now, who doesn't even want to acknowledge climate change. They're also erasing the words climate change from their government websites. The next thing we need to do, we need to elect people to Congress that have that believe in the Paris Climate Agreement. We also have to, at the state level, start using money to use alternative fuels, have rebates for homeowners, and additionally, we also need to start working on a local level to develop plans for elevation and where does this flood water go. Thank you.
Thank you. So here's a question for both of you. You mentioned the new development, but again, as we asked our previous candidates, we have about, all right, so obviously we already have homes in these vulnerable areas. What do we do to protect these areas?
We've got to insist that when the cities allow infill building, that they have got to follow regulations that will not allow a homeowner to flood the next door neighbor. As an affordable housing builder, I see it every single day that it's being done. I believe that we're going to have to regulate it from the state if our cities and municipalities do not do that, because it's important. We're allowing them to elevate a house next door to somebody who's been there for 5 or 6 years, and they're dumping all of their water onto their neighbors, which is automatically causing flooding inside of our inner cities. And that's really, really important. We're burying our neighbors with water. They do put in some swells and things like that, but it's really not working as well as it could.
How do we protect our areas? We protect our areas by committing to smarter policies and to figuring out where and how we're going to divert water. We also have to look at the flood insurance issues. Many people can't afford flood insurance, so we also have to take a look at that. And then we also just have to make sure that what we are doing doesn't cause harm to one neighbor by fixing the problem for the other neighbor. So we have to look at this holistically.
And again, same rule, if you have any questions, raise your hand. We're going to bring over index cards so that you can write your questions and we can ask them at the end. So for both candidates, what role should the state education system play in informing on sea level rise? Is there an education program you would champion?
I don't know if we have a serious educational plan, because most people that I know are not fully aware of what the sea level is actually doing. But as I've studied this, I realized that Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and some of those cities are really investing a lot of money in ensuring that the communities are well aware of what's happening and how the sea level is really going to impact and affect their communities. So yes, I would certainly support having some educational programs in place to educate our communities, because most communities are not aware. They just know they're flooding. They don't really know why. And the community must be educated, absolutely.
I would say that education is certainly a key part in playing this role. I would like to see us start working with state universities in order to ensure that people are not only just educating themselves and saying, hey, climate change, this is what's happening, but also come up with some solutions as to how we can handle it. Because I understand that even with, as far as recycling, people don't really understand what you can recycle and what you can recycle. This past legislative session, there was a committee for the House Select Committee on Hurricane Response and Preparedness. I'd love to look at those recommendations and see what they have as far as education policies.
Thank you. So addressing sea level rise and flooding will require actions from all levels of government. But where in particular do you think the state needs to play a role in leading the response to sea level rise and flooding? And we'll start with Ms. Science.
The first thing I'm going to say, which probably will make people upset, would be funding, right? We find funding for so many other things, but what we're not doing is finding funding for these important issues that we're facing as far as Florida. Florida should be doing much better than we are as far as climate change, the environment, all of the things that we have here as far as solar energy. We should be leading the nation, and we're not. We're falling very much so behind.
Yes. So obviously addressing sea level rise and flooding will require actions from all levels of government, but where in particular do you think the state needs to play a role in leading the response to sea level rise and flooding?
Well, one of the things I think that the state initially must do, and that is to have a roundtable with the municipalities around the state of Florida. There are some cities around the state of Florida that are doing very well in ensuring that they are rising up their sea walls in certain areas. They're putting in infrastructure that will allow for some of the excess water that's coming off of the ocean. So I would say that we first would have to kind of get with the various municipalities to determine what is their need. We absolutely know that funding is always going to be a critical issue. Money is always an issue. But we do find money to do all the other things. And if Miami and Fort Lauderdale and those other cities can do it, so can the rest of the cities around the state of Florida.
So you both talked about funding. Under what conditions do you feel it is appropriate to use tax dollars to fund sea level rise resilience activities? And what efforts would you champion?
To use taxpayer dollars for funding for sea level rise. Well, we have no choice but to use taxpayers' dollars. There are no other dollars really coming in other than the dollars that our taxpayers are providing through sales tax. I mean, when we take a look at what's happening, we know that we have got to do something about the sea level rise. If in 1950, it only rose by 3%, and we've gone up to 8%, and it's 3% every year. Every 3 years, 1% is anticipated to rise. We're going to all be underwater. So it is critical that we figure out, as legislators, where those dollars would come from. I don't know how the community will receive that, but got to get back to the community and have those roundtables and those town halls to determine how they feel about using their taxpayer dollars, because that's really ultimately what's the most responsible way to do it. As a legislator, I cannot make that decision without coming back to Tampa and having that conversation with our communities, because it is their money.
So again, what efforts do you think are appropriate for which to use these taxpayer dollars, Ms. Sykes?
Again, Florida is uniquely at risk. So I would agree that we have to allocate some tax dollars for our environment. Otherwise, we're going to end up underwater. We're going to end up hurting our future generations, which is exactly what's happening now. We have, our children are at risk, our future are at risk, our homes are at risk. Financially, we're at risk because we can't afford this. We have that saltwater intrusion, and we're not the only, we're surrounded by water. So the only cities that are safe at this time are the ones who are in inner cities, not the coastal cities. So we have to make sure that we are working with all the cities at the same time, but they have to understand that there is going to be a cost.
When it comes to sea level rise and coastal Floridians being displaced from their homes, There's a potential for large numbers of climate refugees to migrate to different areas of the state. How do you propose the state prepares for this potential shift in population?
Well, I think that's something that we have already started to see with the influx of Puerto Ricans coming over from the island. So it's a problem that we have to make sure that we are dealing with, because what ends up happening is you have so many people coming over, and additionally you already have people that are here. So if we don't start allocating funds for specifically what they were allocated for, so specifically the Sadowski Trust Fund, if we don't use that for exactly what it was specifically intended for, then the same thing is going to happen. We have to get out of these same traditional conservative thoughts that I've been here for 15 years, and all I see is the same thing. I haven't seen any changes. So I'd like to see a change in the thinking about our environment.
Repeat that question, please.
Yeah. So, as sea levels rise and coastal Floridians are displaced from their homes, there's a potential for large numbers of climate refugees to migrate to different areas of the state. How do you propose the state prepare for this potential shift in population?
You know, I'm not exactly sure how we will prepare as a state. However, what I do understand is that we have got to fund affordable housing, sustainable housing. We have got to do that. And if people are going to be displaced from where they are, absolutely, you know, they have to have someplace else to go. So that's going to be a critical issue. When we look around our city currently, we can see the influx of people that did come in as a result of the previous storm. And we see the people who have been displaced. And right now, we don't have any place for our people to go. So we're going to have a mind shift, and we're going to have to come together as communities and deal with it. It cannot be anything that any one person or the state can handle on their own. This will have to be a holistic approach by both our municipalities and our state and elected officials.
So we have one audience question, and it's the following. What is your plan to make sure the Florida flood insurance pools are able to help citizens recover from the impact of sea level rise?
I've been taking a very serious look at the insurance, and what I see is that we have got to stop our builders from building on barrier islands. If we don't do that, we will not be able to do anything about the rise of insurance. As long as people continue to build on our coastlines, insurance is going to go up. But one of the things I think is, as a legislator, I would have to bring in the insurance companies, the realtors. All of these bodies have got to come together, because the realtors sell the properties, the insurance companies insure the properties. So we've all got to come together and kind of wrap our mind around what would be best, because that's what it's going to take, coming together in order to figure out what's the best way to serve our constituents for this insurance. Because insurance is really way too expensive. And a result of that is where we're building and the lack of making sure that our inspectors are doing it properly and building the proper type of buildings. That's going to be critical to the insurance.
I'm going to go back to my previous answer about committing to smarter planning. I also believe that we have to, again, develop plans on where this water will go, how we are going to address that issue statewide. So as a legislator, my responsibility is not only going to be to the citizens of District 61, it's going to be to the citizens of this entire state. So I want to make sure that we implement plans that are going to be able to affect everyone, help everyone that's affected. Additionally, I want to make sure that people are, again, educated, and we have to make sure that people who right now can't even afford their basic daily needs, their insurance and their flooding needs are being met.
Thank you. One more question from the audience. What policies do you plan on implementing as agrochemical runoff continues to increase with flooding?
I haven't completely come to exactly what I would file as far as that legislation. However, I've been endorsed by the Florida Democratic Environmental Caucus. I look forward to sitting with them. I look forward to listening to the constituents, and I look forward to hearing from the experts so that they can inform me before I make any decisions on any legislation that I'm going to file.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we have one more question, and I apologize to whoever wrote this. I'm going to try to decipher what it says. Are you aware that autos are the #1 source of generating air pollution? And climate change, would you provide leadership creating an emission standard? So when it comes to cars, would you provide leadership to create an emission standard?
Yes, I am very much aware that we have far too many cars on our road, and that's why transportation is so critically important. That is the reason why we need to get some of our vehicles off of the streets by having light rail, by creating mass transit with our bus situation, using alternative types of fuel. I think that's really, really important, and that's one of the things that we could certainly do. They are doing it around the country, using corn instead of gasoline. I mean, there are many things that we could do to impact the emissions that we're getting, and that absolutely does impact our environment, and it's helping to fuel the sea level rise.
You want to answer the last question we have for you?
Oh, okay. I was waiting for the question before that. But yes, I believe that we do have to invest state money into flex fuel economy, and if there's some rebates and maybe we can work with the, I moved here from Michigan 15 years ago, so there are some things that they were doing there as far as policies that they work with along with the state, and I'm not exactly sure how they would benefit us here, but I would definitely like to continue to do my research on that so that I can bring any possible solutions that are going to make sure that Florida remains on a path moving forward for us so that we can continue to protect our environment and our entire state.
Thank you so much to both our candidates. We appreciate your presence.
Thank you.